The story of the New York Giants begins in 1925, when professional football was still struggling to earn recognition in a sporting landscape dominated by baseball and college football. Tim Mara, a bookmaker and businessman, paid just $500 to secure a franchise in the National Football League, a league that was barely surviving at the time. The team was placed in New York City, the media capital of the world, but gaining acceptance in such a competitive sports market was no small task. Mara knew that if the Giants were to succeed, they would need to not only win games but also capture the imagination of the public. In the early years, the Giants worked to establish themselves as a tough, disciplined team. The roster included several college football standouts, and the Giants soon developed a reputation for playing hard-nosed, defensive football. By 1927, just 2 years after their founding, the Giants claimed their first NFL championship by shutting out opponents 5 times in a season where they allowed only 20 points in total, a defensive feat that still stands as one of the greatest in league history. This established the team's foundation, a tradition of defensive excellence and resilience. During the 1930s, the Giants became one of the NFL's most recognizable franchises, in large part due to their appearances in championship games. Led by coach Steve Owen, the Giants reached the NFL title game 8 times in that decade, winning in 1934 and 1938. The 1934 NFL championship, remembered as the Sneakers game, became legendary. Playing against the heavily favored Chicago Bears on an icy field, the Giants were slipping and struggling until they switched to sneakers for better traction in the second half. The change gave them the edge, and they stunned the Bears with a 30-13 victory. This clever adjustment not only secured a title but also created one of the most iconic stories in the early history of the NFL. The Giants' commitment to strategy, toughness, and adaptability cemented their reputation as a cornerstone franchise of professional football. The 1940s brought challenges, including the impact of World War II, which depleted rosters across the league. Many players went off to serve in the military, and teams had to improvise with talent. Despite this, the Giants remained competitive under Owen's leadership, reaching the championship game in 1944 but falling short. Throughout the decade, they were consistently known for their defensive prowess, but the offense often struggled. Still, the Giants remained a fixture in the league, helping keep professional football relevant during a turbulent era. The 1950s marked another important chapter in the Giants' journey, as the franchise began to modernize and move toward national prominence. In 1956, under the guidance of head coach Jim Lee Howell and with assistance from 2 future legends, offensive coordinator Vince Lombardi and defensive coordinator Tom Landry, the Giants captured another NFLC. The early 1990s should have been a golden continuation of the New York Giants' rise, but instead the decade unfolded as one of transition and inconsistency. After the magical Super Bowl 25 victory, head coach Bill Parcells stepped down, citing health concerns and exhaustion. His departure left a void in leadership that was difficult to fill. Ray Handley, a longtime assistant, was promoted to head coach, but he lacked the commanding presence and tactical genius of Parcells. The Giants slipped into mediocrity, missing the playoffs in both 1991 and 1992, and Handley was dismissed. The team that had been so dominant under Parcells and Belichick now found itself searching for identity. Dan Reeves, who had enjoyed success with the Denver Broncos, was brought in as head coach in 1993. Reeves guided the Giants to an 11-5 record and a playoff berth in his first season, giving fans hope of a quick rebound. However, the roster was aging, and quarterback Phil Simms, along with legendary linebacker Lawrence Taylor, were nearing the end of their careers. After a playoff win against the Minnesota Vikings, the Giants were routed by the San Francisco 49ers, and the following years brought more struggles. Simms retired after the 1993 season, and Taylor hung up his cleats after 1993 as well, marking the end of an era. Reeves could not replicate his early success, and after several losing seasons, he too was dismissed. The Giants then turned to Jim Fassel in 1997, and while Fassel was not as fiery as Parcells, he brought stability. In his first year, the Giants went 10-5-1 and won the NFC East, but they fell quickly in the playoffs. Fassel's tenure was marked by ups and downs, but he did help usher in a new era with a mix of veterans and young talent. In 2000, the Giants surprised the football world by making a run to the Super Bowl. Behind quarterback Kerry Collins and a strong defense led by Michael Strahan, Jesse Armstead, and Jason Sehorn, the Giants won the NFC Championship in dominating fashion, shutting out the Minnesota Vikings 41-0. Optimism surged as the Giants prepared to face the Baltimore Ravens in Super Bowl 35. But the game was a nightmare. The Ravens' historically great defense overwhelmed Collins, forcing turnovers and shutting down the Giants' offense in a 34-7 rout. The loss stung, and it reminded the franchise that while they were capable of big seasons, they were still a step away from consistent greatness. The early 2000s saw the Giants hovering between contention and frustration. Fassel's playoff guarantee in 2002 briefly energized the fan base, as the Giants made the postseason but were eliminated in a crushing overtime loss to the 49ers in one of the most infamous collapses in team history. The Giants blew a 24-point lead, and controversial officiating on the final play added salt to the wound. The loss symbolized the inconsistency of the Fassel years, flashes of brilliance undone by painful collapses. By 2003, after a disastrous 4-0, the 2011 season began with little expectation that the Giants would rise to the level of their 2007 magic. Injuries piled up early, especially on defense, and critics doubted whether Eli Manning could replicate the clutch brilliance that had once defined him. Yet Manning responded with what many consider the finest season of his career. He threw for nearly 5,000 yards and led the league with a record number of fourth-quarter comebacks. Time and again, when the Giants seemed beaten, Manning pulled them back from the brink. Still, the team's inconsistency showed, and they entered the playoffs with a modest 9-7 record, barely qualifying. But history would repeat itself. The Giants would transform in January. In the wild card round, they dominated the Atlanta Falcons. In the divisional round, they stunned the 15-1 Green Bay Packers at Lambeau Field, showing the same fearless energy that had carried them 4 years earlier. Then came the NFC Championship against the San Francisco 49ers, a brutal, rain-soaked battle that stretched into overtime. The Giants' defense battered quarterback Alex Smith, and after a fumble recovery on a punt return, kicker Lawrence Tynes once again delivered the game-winning field goal to send New York back to the Super Bowl. Awaiting them was a familiar foe, the New England Patriots. This time, the Patriots were not undefeated, but they were still formidable, led by Tom Brady and Bill Belichick. The rematch was tense and closely contested. Early in the game, Giants receiver Mario Manningham made one of the most clutch plays in Super Bowl history, catching a 38-yard sideline pass from Manning in tight coverage, perfectly placed where only he could grab it. That play sparked the decisive drive, and Ahmad Bradshaw scored the go-ahead touchdown late in the fourth quarter. The Giants' defense held firm, and when Brady's final desperation pass fell incomplete, the Giants had pulled off their second Super Bowl upset of the Patriots in 4 years. The 21-17 victory gave them their fourth Lombardi Trophy. Manning, once again Super Bowl MVP, silenced any remaining doubts about his legacy. For Giants fans, the 2011 title was a dream, but the years that followed brought frustration. The franchise failed to build sustained success around its core. Injuries, poor drafting, and coaching instability contributed to inconsistency. After 2012, the Giants missed the playoffs 4 straight seasons, and Tom Coughlin, despite his legendary status, was pressured to step down after 2015. His departure marked the end of an era defined by discipline, toughness, and 2 unforgettable Super Bowl triumphs. Ben McAdoo was hired as Coughlin's successor, and in 2016, the Giants briefly looked like contenders again. Eli Manning had weapons in rookie sensation Odell Beckham Jr., and the defense was reinforced with key acquisitions like Janoris Jenkins and Olivier Vernon. They finished 11-5, their best record in years, and returned to the playoffs.